We're all set. Good evening and welcome to the Township of Woolwich Council meeting on September 14th, 2021. Before we begin, I will remind council that this portion of the meeting is being recorded and live streamed to YouTube. I will start with a roll call of council for the benefit of those watching this meeting. I, Councillor McMillan, am present and chairing this meeting. Mayor Shantz.
I'm here.
Councillor Martin. Present. Councillor Merlihan.
Present.
Councillor Redekop.
Present.
And Councillor Shantz.
Present.
Excellent. With that, if somebody would care to move a motion that council reconvenes in open session. Mayor Shantz, second. Councillor Shantz, all in favor? That's carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Councillor Merlihan?
Yes, I have a pecuniary interest for the report 9.1.1. It's the purchase of the tractor from ESN Farm in Wallenstein. They are a client.
I believe, Councillor Merlihan, that's part of the consent agenda, correct? Am I correct, Clerk Hume? 9.1? Yeah, so when we get to the consent agenda, we'll just move everything except that, and then Councillor Merlihan can step out when we approve that part of it. See no other disclosures. Items to come forward from closed session. Clerk Hummel, we have one, I believe.
Yes, one item, that the Council of the Township of Woolwich directs SV Law to represent the township at the Ontario Land Tribunal in the matter of the Hawkridge Homes Appeal and Capital Paving Appeal files.
That is the recommendation. Would anyone care to move it? Councillor Martin, second. Councillor Merlihan, anyone to speak to it? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We have no public meetings. We have no presentations. We have two delegations. Before we hear from the delegations, I'll read the instructions once for both parties. To the delegations, please leave your video turned off and your microphone muted until you are called on to speak. Each speaker has a maximum of 10 minutes. The clerk will let myself know when your speaking time is up. Once you are finished, please turn your microphone and camera off again. You may leave after your delegation or stay on the meeting as long as you keep your camera and microphone turned off. So with that, we will move to our first delegation, Mary Jane Patterson from Reap Green Solutions and the 2020-2021 Impact Report Update.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Excellent. I will share my screen quickly because it's counting already. Well, I want to say thank you so much for letting us present our impact report on the first day of making it public. You're only the second council to hear it. It was regional council this morning that got it first. We are really happy to share with you our report on the past fiscal year, which ended on March 31st, and to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing all this time. Okay, hang on, it's not advancing. Oh, it advanced. So I want to let you know, I'm sure you know, that REAP works on practical action to address climate change in the community. And last year we adopted our 10-year impact goal with a target of 10,000 meaningful actions that we have helped to make happen in the community that shift us to a resilient, low carbon future. And here we are 1 year later, almost 10% on our way to that 10,000 action goal. And you can see that we have twice as many supportive actions. And those are things like attending a workshop that might be on someone's journey of sustainability. So if someone attends a tree workshop, that's a supportive action. If someone plants a tree, that's a meaningful action because that's making change happen right there. Here's an example of some of this work. In the past year, we planted almost 3,000 pollinator species, trees, and shrubs. And I just want to pause here because I know how much work Woolwich Township has done on tree planting. So I know you will appreciate the importance of all of this work in creating habitat, in anchoring the soil, replenishing it, all of those things that are benefits of these plants. You probably know that we also work with people on water conservation and managing that very important resource of water, both outside and inside the house. In the past year, we helped 12 rain gardens be designed and installed. And we worked with the region of Waterloo to do home water reviews, where we show people how to conserve water at home and save money on their water bill. And during that time, we had the opportunity to install fixtures that right away start saving water, things like shower heads and replacing toilet flappers. And we were able to do that with 216 fixtures. We're seeing a little bit of an increase now of interest in our water conservation programs, and a little bit of that is coming from Woolwich too. I took a look at the numbers before I came. This was certainly a very big part of last year, and that was the finish line for TransformWR, our climate action strategy for Waterloo Region. REAP co-leads this with Sustainable Waterloo Region and working very closely with all of our municipalities. And out of that came 4 calls to action to transform the ways we move, build, consume, and relate to each other. And a lot of the work we do at REAP Green Solutions relates directly to this. Whoops, I'm sorry. And one example of that is our home energy evaluations, because they show people how to make their homes more energy efficient and reduce the greenhouse gas emissions associated with heating our homes and water. Last year, we completed 175 of these. Right in the middle of a lockdown, the federal government launched the Greener Homes Initiative. So we suddenly had a soaring demand at a time when we weren't allowed to do any, but we've been keeping track of everyone. We've seen an increase in Woolwich. We've got 10 people from Woolwich on the waiting list or scheduled. And it's great to see this resurgence of interest in making homes more energy efficient. This was the end of a 2-year Project Neutral project at the end of that fiscal year. And in that second year of the project, we had 846 people log on to find out what their household carbon footprint is and to see what they can do about it. Not everyone tells us, again, if what they've done as a result of that, but some of them do get back in touch with us, and they reported 111 actions that they took as a result of finding out about their footprint and deciding to do something about it. We managed to have one in-person workshop this year, a tree workshop, and then all of the rest of our workshops turned into webinars online. And it was very interesting to see how some of them attracted more interest from our community and from across Canada and even the United States. So I would imagine going forward, we're going to see a mixture of that, of online and in person. We also received donations that support this work. Last year, it was $24,000, which was a new high for us and tremendously supportive in some of the outreach that I'm showing you here, which is not directly funded. Well, it is coming close to October 1st, and that is the beginning of Waste Reduction Month and the Zero Waste Challenge. And you'll be surprised to know that I have a mason jar handy right here. The challenge here is to take the waste that you can't compost or recycle for 1 week and put it in a mason jar and see if you can keep it down to only that amount for 1 week. And really what it's about is seeing what's in that jar. And Mayor Shantz, I know you've participated before and we've so appreciated that. Here you see some happy participants last year. Even during COVID, we had some great participation and people sharing what they learned and some of their tricks for reducing waste. At the regional council meeting this morning, we had a lot of interest, and I believe the gauntlet was thrown down for councillors to participate. And I am issuing this invitation to you, Woolwich councillors. We would love to have your participation. Please don't worry about whether it can all fit in the jar. It's really about what you're learning as you see what's in that jar. And I reported this morning what I learned about my Miss Vicky's potato chips habit and that I am on a mission to reduce it. You see more of the financial summary in the impact report itself. I'm sharing this screen because I think it shows the diversity of programs that we have and that there's a kind of a nice balance between climate change mitigation and adaptation in the programs that we have. Looking ahead, there's 3 new programs that fill a need and that get us excited. One is called the Tree Trust, partnering with Elora Environment Center to bring their program to Waterloo Region. This is where we hire an arborist to care for a mature tree and keep it thriving. The second one is a home energy retrofit design program. And you see our energy advisor, Brendan, on the right there. This is a program with all of our municipalities around the table and utilities to design a way for us to provide supports to homeowners in Waterloo Region and be prepared to make an application for funding from the FCM to support that program. And finally, Project Neutral has moved to Kids Cutting Carbon, which is going to be high school students, using that tool with the support of university students who help lead them through their paces on it. We could not resist coming back to our meaningful actions bar graph here, because since March 31st, we have had a number of people take more actions, even during the lockdowns in April. So we're now at 14% when we look at where we are up until this date, and over 3,000 supportive actions. We had a lot of workshops and educational opportunities in the spring. And that just shows us how much interest we have in the community in a resilient, low carbon future. I want to end with a very big thank you to you, Woolwich councillors, to you, Mayor Shantz, as a part of the Regional Council that is one of our core funders. That foundation makes a tremendous difference to us and helps us go forward and find money and programs like the application that's going to be coming next year to the FCM to bring resources here to this community. So we say thank you to you, and a special thanks to the Woolwich Township staff that we get to work with regularly. And that's in particular Ann Roberts and David Brenneman. It is an honor to work with them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary Jane. It's always exciting to hear your updates, and we're grateful that you were able to come to the Best Township first with your presentation. Councilors, are there any questions for the delegation? Mayor Shantz?
Not a question, just thanks for coming, Mary Jane, and for all the work you do, and the initiative that you've been leading for so long. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And I'll look for a mason jar.
Excellent.
Councilor Shantz?
That was my question. Where do you get a mason jar?
Oh.
A fruit cellar.
You might have to eat some peaches. If you need help, let me know. I have a couple extra in the garage.
So how big can I go?
I get that question a lot. Yes. You are on your own recognizance. In fact, if it keeps peace in the family, each person in the family can have their own. Sometimes that's important. It can lead to a little bit of strife if somebody puts something in the family jar that pushes it over the top.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. Thank you very much again, Mary Jane.
My pleasure. Thanks all.
And with that, we will move to our second delegate, John Messina, speaking of 165 Bloomingdale Road and the township official plan. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Messina.
Great, thank you very much. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, delegates, and community as a whole. My name is John Messina, and I've resided in the township for over 23 years now. So I'll make this quick and to the point. I just want to have my voice to be heard again, because I know you'll be discussing the regional official plan later on this evening. I've been here before council many times for this matter, spoken to all of the officials at city and planning, hired all sorts of consultants and planners to bring forth a small parcel of land, less than 3 acres, in an urban area with all its amenities on the street. This parcel is located on 165 Bloomingdale Road. The corridor into Bridgeport, Kitchener, and the property sits on the hard line between Kitchener and Woolwich. We have repeatedly asked to include this parcel in the region's official plan for at least 30 plus years. I'm tired of this string us along. And we see big developers chew up land, farmland, in much quicker time. I'm here to ask again, to please look at this parcel, look at its location, look at its surroundings, look at the ease of developing this parcel. Convince the region to make the right decision, or at least tell me what to do with it. Being it's in the middle of an urban area and no farmers want to farm this parcel anymore. Allow us to develop this small, insignificant parcel and add a small revenue stream to the township of Woolwich, which it could always use. Mayor, council, again, I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Messina. Council, any questions for the delegation? I'm not seeing any, so thank you very much for your presentation. You are welcome to stay on.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you very much. Moving on, we have no unfinished business. We do have a consent agenda. Perhaps somebody would care to move approval of the consent agenda except for item 9.1.1. Would anyone care to move that? Councillor Shantz, second. Councillor Merlehan, excellent. Anyone to speak to it? All in favor? Opposed? And with all of the consent agenda except for 9.1.1 approved, Councillor Merlehan can exit. And if somebody would care to move approval of 9.1.1, Councillor Redicott, second. Mayor Shantz, all in favor? And that is carried. Councillor Merlehan, welcome back. So our new bylaws and procedures carry us all the way now through correspondence, through the items for information, and to staff reports and memos. And for that, we will go to 10.1, proposed 2022 council meeting schedule, and Clerk Val Hummel.
Councillor Merlehan, it looks like you wanted to say something.
Sorry, Councillor Merlehan.
Hi, sorry, through you, Councillor McMillan. Under the correspondence, I had a resident asked me to bring up the letter to Mayor Shantz from the Ministry of Northern Development Mines. And he had a question about the significance of Jigs Hollow in that letter. He was wondering why I guess they were approved to have a below water gravel pit at that location more than a year ago, and was wondering why that is still not been approved when other gravel pits seem to get approval in 3 months after the initial approval. So he was wondering if there was any insight that maybe Mayor Shantz or somebody else on staff would have on that.
Mayor Shantz, do you have?
I don't have any further insights. The discussion was at the direction of council to contact the Premier, and Mr. Rickford, Minister Rickford was on the call, and we talked about the Shantz Station, the capital paving application, and we talked briefly about Jigs Hollow as another application in the township. But I don't have any more information other than what is in the letter here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz, Councillor Merlehan. So with that, I think we can move to item 10.1 and Clerk Valhama.
Thank you. I can answer any questions you have, but first a few highlights. So starting with this 2022 draft schedule for council meetings, it proposes to start budget meetings a week later than normal. That would be on January 11th. and then goes on to say 2 special council meetings surrounding election, which can be canceled if necessary, and it shows a new legislated start date for the next term of council as November 15th. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Otherwise, the motion to adopt the meeting schedule is needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Hummel. Council, any questions? Councilor Merlehan?
I'm wondering, a couple of years ago, we entertained looking at moving Tuesday meetings to Monday meetings. And in light of, at the time, we didn't because there were members of council that were part of the fire training that happened on Mondays, and that doesn't happen anymore. And I know a Monday meeting would work better for my work schedule, and I think Councillor Martin would probably work better for his work schedule. I'm just wondering if anybody would entertain Tuesday or a move from Tuesday to Mondays next year.
Anyone have any comments? Mondays would also work better for me, so that's 2 votes for Monday. Councilor Martin, your name was invoked. Do Mondays work better for you?
I don't think it makes any difference to me because of my other activity, I don't expect to be doing it too long.
Yeah, it doesn't matter for me either, Councillor McMillan.
I'm flexible
Jones?
as well.
I'm good.
So do we?
Can I?
Yeah, Mayor
sorry.
Shantz? Yeah, no, absolutely.
Can I just ask staff if they if there's any issues for staff with a Monday?
Yes.
We can probably not. Another thing we haven't done is the regional schedule is not out yet. So we haven't been able to compare our schedule there. So why don't we just go and redo it with Monday nights if that's council's direction, and then you can maybe see that next week.
Without making a decision, staff can confer, talk to everybody, and bring council some information about possible impacts or
Yes,
unintended consequences.
I anticipate it'll be all the same weeks except shifted to Monday.
Is council okay with that? Staff has some time and brings us some more information. Thumbs up. Excellent. Now, I do have a question. Clerk Hummel, did you put as much energy into the 2022 schedule, given that any pending status of your employment? Before you respond to that, I think I would just like to give the floor to Mayor Shantz for a quick second.
Thank you, Councillor McMillan. I'm just going to, this is Val's last meeting with us. She is retiring the end of the month. And she asked me to not do anything that's going to make her emotional. So I'll try to be kind. But Val, we will miss your wonderful enthusiasm and hope that you do come back sometime, and we'll give you your 7 to 10 minutes for a delegation, and you can give us a little pick-me-up when we need it. You've had, and I'm sorry, I didn't check how many years you've been working here, but maybe you'd like to tell us that in a moment. So thank you for all the work you've done and the guidance you've given us, and through elections and through COVID. It's been quite a ride. We appreciate all that you've done for us, and all the best in your retirement.
Thank you. May I say one word, knowing that we want to keep this short, because I didn't prepare anything at all, right?
Start the clock.
Don't you dare, Jeff. So I have considered the position of Director of Corporate Services and Municipal Clerk to be a blessing in my life, truly. Serving in this role has taught me many lessons, and I haven't always been perfect, but I have always tried to do my best. I have tried to fulfill the requirements of the position with an attitude of servitude, integrity, and compassion. I have looked for the humor and learning opportunities in every moment, and I have learned that if you take care of the people who work with you, they in turn take care of you. Most times. I have become a better person because I was allowed to serve as the Director of Corporate Services and Municipal Clerk for the Township of Woolwich. Thank you to Chris Fletcher, former Regional Clerk and former Township Clerk, and Leanne Wetzel, former Regional Deputy Clerk and Regional and Township Clerk and Township Deputy Clerk, who hired me way back in the spring of 1990 when the dinosaurs roamed the lands. I'm sure it only took them a few weeks to learn they'd made a horrible mistake, but anyways, thank you to CAO David Brenneman for all his leadership, humor, wisdom, and wisdom shared. I've enjoyed working with him, although I have not enjoyed his John Wayne impersonations at all. Thank you to the other members of the senior management team, Jared, Annie, and Richard, who each bring a unique perspective to the leadership table. I adore them, but I won't miss spending half a day each week with them. Thank you to the employees I work with in the Corporate Services Department who are all dedicated, hardworking individuals who bring their best to the table every day and who have almost never faltered while working through a worldwide pandemic for months. And finally, thank you to members of council for the effort you put in to trying to create a safe and orderly community. The one thing I've learned very well working with the members of 10 terms of council over the past 31 years has been that your job is rarely easy, but it is necessary. And I have a profound appreciation for people like you who step into the arena to serve. Thank you for being a great and progressive employer. Done.
And you will miss us.
Thank you very much, Clerk Hummel. Not to put anyone on the spot, but CAO Brenneman, are you out there? Perhaps you don't have anything prepared either, like Clerk Hummel had nothing prepared?
Yes, well, I mean, it's very hard, as we know, to follow Val, but I will make every effort, and sometimes, certainly not as part of this public meeting, I will share the John Wayne reference. That all being said, it has been a pleasure having Val as part of the senior management team. And I think one of the greatest things about Val and what she brings to the corporation is something that we can all learn from her, and that is her amazing ability to arrange on a moment's notice team building activities, to cultivate strong relationships with staff, and really to bring her team together in a unified way, all rowing in the same direction. Certainly when I think of Val, I think of team, I think of team building, I think of strong relationship building, and certainly she'll be missed around the senior management team table because like the rest of the team around the table, she has a great sense of humor. And as we know, every once in a while, a little flair for the drama, and certainly we'll miss that drama. So yes, Val, thank you very much for all your years of service, and we will certainly miss you.
Not quite the ovation you deserve with the room full, but excellent. Thank you very much. So with that, we will move on to item 10.2. Oh, yes, we got everything that we needed there, right? Staff will come back with some more information there. So 10.2, scoped official plan review, proposed new township official plan. And for that, we will move to manager of planning and Jeremy Vink.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of council. Val forgot, she said something about keeping the meeting short. She forgot planning was coming after her and a full official plan review. So I'll try to keep it short, but I'll do each chapter in maybe less than 10 minutes. There's only 20 chapters, so it won't be long. Starting back, their current official plan was approved back in 2000, so not quite as far back as Val has been here. However, it is in need of updates. That's why we're bringing forward the scoped official plan review. We have done some open houses and we had a public meeting recently this year. So we're just wrapping things up here. And this is the last step in the puzzle for the township side. So just moving forward here, why are we doing this? We have to make some edits to catch up to all the changes that have taken place at the provincial level with the provincial policy statement, the Planning Act, a place to grow that was introduced and updated, and the regional official plan that has changed since we've adopted our plan. All those items have kind of come together to update our plan at this point. With the understanding, of course, right now we understand the region is going through another review of their plan at this point in time. They're going to make some bigger changes amongst boundary adjustments, employment area designations, and climate change initiatives. That will mean, yes, we will have to come back and basically do a rewrite of our entire plan, starting after the region completing their official plan review. So the question is probably to you at the moment, why are we doing this now? And it comes back to the problem that we need to catch up. We have had a problem in the past a few years ago where the Ontario Land Tribunal actually critiqued us for not having updated our plan and criticized us, and not that we hadn't caught up. We've also been dealing with a number of official plan amendments from various developers just to deal with density issues where we haven't caught up with the plan. So these types of things have to get updated and fixed at this time period. We also don't know how long it's going to take for the region to complete their official plan and actually get it implemented and approved. And then it's going to take us a few years, probably a year or two at least, to get our plan back up to date. So we're talking a few years here that we need to keep this plan in place in the interim. So that's the reason we need to move it through and finalize it a little bit more to get it up to date so it has meaning at this time. So each of the chapters that we're going to go through. So as I mentioned, there's a number of chapters. I'm not going to go through each of them in absolute detail and go through every item tonight. I'm going to highlight key items. So chapter 1 is the overall introduction to the plan, and it's going to change the planning horizon from 2016. So our current plan ends at 2016 and we're at 2021. So that's one of the reasons we need to update. So we're going to go to the 2031 time period, which is the current regional official plan's timeline. With that, we're also going to set the stage with the PPS, a place to grow in the regional official plan, as to the overarching policies that we're following through with. Chapter 4 is the principles, vision statement, and values. We're not going to touch chapter 4. That's established. We're not diving into that at this point. In our new official plan, we will dive back into that and make some review of those issues and make changes as necessary. Chapter 5, this is where the township structure is put into place, and this is where we have to implement the structure that's in the current ROC. So there's urban areas, which is Breslau and the Stockyards area, which are urban areas like the cities. Then we have the township urban areas, Elmira, St. Jacobs. Then we have the rural settlements, which are most of the other rural, smaller settlements, the rural employment areas, the countryside, and then the countryside line. So this is following out of the regional official plan that set the structure for the plan and the policy frameworks from there. We are also, as noted, changing the population and employment targets to match the 2031 as set by the region. So those numbers will change to be reflected in the plan. Currently, I've set at 2016, as I noted. We're also going to adjust the density targets, which as per the regional official plan, go to 55 people and jobs per hectare in the urban areas, and 45 people and jobs in the township urban areas, and just the 40 people and jobs in the employment areas. We'll be looking at putting in our urbanization target into place finally at 20%, which is Elmira, St. Jacobs, and Breslau for those areas. Moving on to chapter 6, the countryside. This is the rural areas. So there's some changes in here, not as substantial as you might have thought, because we did the recent update about a year ago on the rural areas for on-farm diversified uses. However, there are some changes we have to put into place to acknowledge the prime agricultural areas versus rural areas. To put in, we're carrying forward those on-farm diversified use regulations, and they're not changing. Also moving forward here, we are deleting a long-standing policy in our official plan about infill lots. Those policies haven't been applicable for quite some time, so they needed to be deleted. So those sections, that's being removed. We're adding in acknowledging the regional airport, and because that's in the rural areas there. So acknowledging that in the policies. Updating it basically, you know, that we're going to keep in the minor lot boundary adjustments, which are still continue to be permitted. We still do not allow infilling or non-farm lots to be created in the rural areas, so that's not changing either. One thing that you will notice, and it wasn't really mentioned in the report, and we probably should mention this, it ties back to one of the items on the outstanding activity list for council, is the issue around the rural institutional uses for the Mennonite community, around the horse and buggy community for their churches and schools. We're tying in a policy in our in this chapter about allowing for the severances. This has been done in other Wilmot and Wellesley, for example. So we're just matching that policy, which may allow for them to do the ultimate severances now and solve that problem that has been an outstanding issue for them. Chapter 7 is the urban area policies. So there's going to be some realignment here to match that urban structure. I mentioned with the urban areas, township urban areas, and what can happen in each. We're also putting in policies. We're going to make the sustainable and green building and urban design policies that were kind of in Breslau and the stockyards, and bring them in and apply them to broadly to the rest of the township, the rest of the urban areas. So we're going to bring that together, which I think is something we wanted to see as council too, but is also consistent with the provincial policy statement. And we're putting in some wording around affordable housing. Unfortunately, we can't require the urban affordable housing until we go through a full-on housing review, but we're putting in policies in there to state that we're going to do the review and we're going to seek to get that completed to set some policies around affordable housing. There are some mapping changes that will come into play. We'll talk about a bit of these deferrals later on, so I'm not going to get to those. Chapter 8 and to 12, there's not a huge amount of changes in these chapters. I'm just going to highlight the mineral aggregate chapter. There has been some changes here. This is a result of comments from the Ontario sand and gravel industry as well as the region. There is some outstanding issues around the aggregate policies we had in place. Some changes had to be made by removing the depth of extraction and just taking that out because we no longer applicable anymore because the province changed the rules around aggregate resources. So we had to remove those sections at the request of the region and the Ontario sand and gravel industry. Moving forward to the environmental chapter, chapter 13, I can basically tell you that's a rewrite. This is a completely rewritten chapter. So much has changed in this section about how we implement any protection measures and what they're classified as for environmental features. So that's elements like wetlands, floodplains, all the woodlots, all those kind of items are all put into this Greenland network. So we had to really catch up with the provincial policy statement and the regional official plan. So there's some major changes in this chapter, but it's consistent to the regional plan and almost word for word in many cases out of that in some ways. So that's been majorly updated. Chapters 14 to 18. Chapter 14, we added in some policies there around public service facilities, air quality, energy conversion, and access to local food, and then lighting for dark sky. So just to deal with lighting issues in settlement in the urban areas. Chapter 15, transportation, some changes there. We had to put in our official plan our road width requirement so that if we're taking road widenings, there's a policy to fall back to. So each and every road had to be reviewed as to its existing width and what the required width should be. So we can do road widenings as necessary for infrastructure improvements. We had to add in to be consistent with the provincial policy statement and region elements around public transit, road hierarchies, and some land use compatibility. So around the airport. So we added some policies around the airport to give us some better policy for development around those areas around the airport with noise and elements like that and height. Chapters 17 and 18, nothing really major. There's a few minor changes in those. Chapter 19, implementation, there's some changes here again. We added in social media into our official plan. So we kind of finally cut it up to 2020s to talk about social media and how we can utilize that. We put in some new standards around site plan control to be consistent with the Planning Act. So it gives us better controls for site plan. Updated our complete application requirements for applications like zoning amendments and official plans, et cetera, what can be required and asked for. And lastly, basically, chapter 20, the glossary was updated with all new word definitions as necessary to be reflective of, consistent with the PPS and the regional official plan in terms of just the wording of the definition. So they're all consistent throughout. Some other key items here, as noted in the report, some of the deferrals. So these are things we want to see addressed, but are being deferred at this point in time. The stockyards, because that is still at the region for review and approvals. The Isabella Street policy area in St. Jacobs, as well as the Albert Street policy area redesignation and the North Arthur Street policy area. These ones are all deferrals. They need to be addressed at the regional level at this point through municipal comprehensive review so that we can change the designations from employment down to whatever is appropriate, whether it's residential or commercial. So we need the regional approvals to do that. So we're just deferring those until the region goes through their official plan and completes that. And then we can implement these after that. Transition policies. So we do have, applications that are moving through at different points. So there is transition policies in place for those applications that may be getting caught in the midst of this. If they've got an official plan amendment in front of us or an approval potentially in front of us, we need these policies in place. Our solicitor has reviewed them and is satisfied that the policies will address everything. We're also looking at the 2-year moratorium. So basically, because we're replacing the current official plan and just rewriting it because it is so significant, we just said repeal and replace versus trying to do all the edits. By replacing it, it puts in a 2-year moratorium under the Planning Act, which means nobody can come in for an official plan amendment. That's not really the intent in this case because it is a scoped official plan review and it is just trying to catch up with policy. So we are suggesting to council the recommendation that the 2-year moratorium not be put into place and that be waived. Lastly, I'm just going to skim through a few items here on the boundary rationalizations. There's been a number of requests like Mr. Messina's. Those items are not within the scope of this amendment and this process. Those are items that are at the regional level that need to be addressed in municipal comprehensive review, which only the region can do. So Mr. Messina has his request in, as well as others at the regional level, to be considered for inclusion into the settlement areas as necessary. The region will be reviewing that through their processes and making recommendations to regional council about what those boundary adjustments would look like and how they fit with our land budget needs. We are going to do a bit of an adjustment in Florida, which is already an official plan to do that. We can do a bit of a swap in the section of Florida, supposing we do that amendment. And I already mentioned the aggregate policy changes. And basically, just at the end here, we're kind of go through some of the comments that we received. So in the package, staff did outline all comments that were received and how they've been addressed. So I think we pretty much addressed everybody's comments in some form or fashion. To be honest, it's great tonight that we're bringing this forward to you, and there's no other delegations really on the policies themselves. So I think it speaks high volumes as to how much work went into getting some of this done, and seeing that we got to this point that there's no significant concerns at this point with the proposal in front of us. So moving forward, the next steps, if council passes everything by adopting the bylaw to repeal the current one and put in the new official plan in place, we will move this to the region. The region then needs to approve the official plan. We are asking council and the recommendation that we request the region expedite the review. The reason we're doing that is because if the region delays the review and they try to do it after their current ROP, it completely changes a significant number of policies. It would have significant impacts. So we do want them to expedite it, complete it now before they finalize their ROP, okay? And as mentioned, the 2-year moratorium portion and the transition policies are noted in there that we deal with those. And the recommendation, as well as, there's been some minor changes that we did since the public meeting, and also since we circulated the plan for review. There is some comments just made, some minor comments for some clarification. There's some edit errors in one section and a mapping error that got corrected since we advertised this, but they're all fairly minor items and have been addressed. So you have the recommendation before you with the 5 points. If council has any questions, I'm here to answer them, and I did it in less than 20 minutes per chapter.
Excellent. Thank you for your brevity, Mr. Bank. Any questions from council? Councilor Shantz?
Yes, thank you through you to Mr. Bank. You answered quite a few of my questions that I already had, so you did a great job. Thank you. My question is back to Mr. Messina and that particular plot of land. And the way the official plan and the regional official plan, that just falls outside of all of the areas that are going to even be coming close to developing. And I'm wondering, is there some way that we can advocate for that, or is there a reason why we're not pushing for that? Because I know exactly where he's talking, and all the amenities are right there, including bus travel and everything. Seems like an ideal spot for a small little group of homes. So maybe you can just comment on that.
Yes, yes, through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Shantz. The question behind that one becomes a little bit is where do you start to end the line? Because almost everybody in that neighborhood would tell you they should all be added because there's a few smaller lots and parcels out there. So it's hard to draw the line. It also becomes a bit of a challenge because to create it would create a new settlement in Woolwich, which we're not really allowed to create new settlements, right? The other alternative is that the lands would have to be dedicated, or this Kitchener would have to expropriate them or take over the land, which would almost make more sense if they're being serviced from Kitchener. But the bigger question would be behind it is the region at the upper tier level will have to look at what makes the most amount of sense in terms of what kind of lands do we need. Do we need residential lands and employment lands, and where do we need them, and where are we best to bring those lands in? So that level is going to be taken at the regional, at the region's level for review and consideration. At some point, we will probably be going to council with some comments and direction around some of those proposals that the region is going to bring forward, so we can give township comments. So somewhere in the future, we will probably come to council with a report to get some council endorsement on a suggestion to the region about whether we endorse what's proposed in the municipal comprehensive review or not. At that time, you could take a look at that and give your comments to the region.
Sorry, Councillor Shantz, I think you muted yourself before you ask your follow-up.
Yeah, okay, thank you, sorry, wrong keyboard. It seems like an ideal location, and I guess all the amenities are there. So is there something, can we advocate on his behalf, or is that something that we're not willing to do? Or like you say, would it be better just to be part of Kitchener, but that creates other problems, I'm sure.
So yes, like I mentioned, I think it's best to leave it when we look at things comprehensively, when the region gives us some an outline of what they're proposing to the municipal comprehensive review later this year. At that time, council can weigh all the requests that are in front of us in the region and give some overall comment of what makes the most amount of sense. Piecemealing it and trying to pick one versus another at this point is a little, I think, premature. I think we're better off looking at it holistically, and that'll probably be coming in late October, probably November. We anticipate seeing items from the region in early October, November, so we'll be coming with a quick report in November for council's endorsement. Then we can look at it comprehensively and determine whether it makes the most amount of sense or not.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Shantz, I think I saw you put your hand up. Was that just good? Council, anyone else? Councilor Merleham?
Yeah, just quickly on that last point with Mr. Messina and that property. I'm not sure we should be advocating for land speculation at this point. If, you know, let's say Mr. Messina decides that property wants to, you know, give it to Goodwill and create affordable housing or I don't know, something that benefits society rather than, you know, filling his pockets for development money. I mean, he bought that land 30 years ago, and it's you know, not doing anything because it wasn't a good piece of property, I suppose. So I'm not sure as a council we should be advocating for those kinds of properties and land speculation. And I guess on the whole grand scoped review, I'm really glad that that we have this here tonight, because I feel like we've been talking about this forever, and a lot of these things have come up over and over again. And yeah, I think we got to be at least my entire time on council talking about scope reviews and stuff. But I mean, they're all starting to blend into each other as well. So anyway, I just wanted to point out how much work and effort goes into these, rather boring policy things that people kind of gloss over, but are very important when it comes to when somebody wants to put up an apartment building or something like that. And that's when these kinds of policies all come into play. So they're important to look at the details. And I know, this has been well looked at. So I appreciate the effort on Jeremy and the planning staff there that have taken this over the last couple of years. So thank you. And I guess I look forward to strengthening this when we go and start this all over again in a couple of years.
Not really a question there, but Mr. Vink, did you have any comments to Councilor Merlehan? No?
No, thank you, Mr. McMahon. Greatly appreciated, Councilor.
I had a couple of questions. First, to echo Councilor Merlehan, yes, thank you for all the hard work that goes into this extensive report. And I think that there's some really fantastic things in here that I think reflects some things that have been said around the council table, things like affordable housing being mentioned, things about greener development. So that's exciting to see that that staff and council are on the same page and working together to make some of those things happen. So thank you for putting those things in. My question is about the ability to change or modify this document as we go forward. One of the questions that I've had, and I don't know that there is an answer to it yet, but one of the questions that I've had is, at what density does growth begin to become sustainable? And I don't know that anybody even knows the answer to that, but if we were to find that out and we were to say, and we were to want to readjust our density targets based on environmental sustainability, fiscal sustainability, would we be able to do that if, say, in 2.5 years from now, that information did become available to us?
Yes, to you, Mr. Chair. Definitely, we can always amend the plan. It's an official plan amendment if we want to do just a one-off item. However, as we mentioned, we're probably going to do a kind of major rewrite starting on a rewrite to look at those kind of issues. So the regional official plan right now is looking through some significant changes around climate, and they're looking at a lot of things, for example, through a climate lens as well as a fiscal lens. So their policies are going to be looking at things along those lines, and we'll have to update to match. So as mentioned, we will be taking a really hard look at almost everything in the plan, probably starting late next year and going into 2023, 2024. So definitely these are kind of items we're going to be looking at and determining the sustainability and how these policies, what is environmental sustainability, what is fiscal sustainability, and how do we pull these policies together to give us the best plan and guidance to move forward. So definitely those kind of things will come forward starting in probably next year that we're going to start working on them.
Thank you. And just to follow up on that, you mentioned the region putting those items in their official plan. How much of those density targets, sustainability targets, green initiatives in development, how much of that comes from the regional official plan, and how much autonomy do we have as a township to do those kinds of things ourselves?
Yes, Mr. Great question. So we do have to be consistent with the provincial policies and the regional policies. So consistent with them, so in the sense that we can't be more liberal, let's put it that way. We can be more restrictive or more demanding. So the region may set some high-level policies, let's pick sustainability. Maybe they set some high-level policies that are consistent with provincial policy. We could come as township staff and be more demanding and more restrictive to say that we want more around those types of items and put in stronger policies. So those are things we could work with. We, however, couldn't go backwards if the region's policies were very strict and demanding about certain levels and numbers. We couldn't be less restrictive. So we do have a lot of flexibility. So there will be opportunity there to review that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Council, any other questions for Mr. Vink? If there are none, there is a 5-part recommendation, a 5-part recommendation. I won't read it. If somebody would care to move it. Councilor Merlehan, second. Councilor Redicott, excellent. Anyone to speak to the recommendation, the motion now? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Excellent. Thank you very much. So with that, other business, council reports, updates. Seeing none, outstanding activity list as of Friday, September 10th, 2021. Anybody have anything on there? Nope. Any notices of motion? Seeing none. So with that, a motion to adjourn. Councilor Martin, second. Councilor Merlehan, all in favor? That is approved. And in closing, council would like to thank all who participated or tuned into the meeting tonight on our YouTube live stream. Council, please stay connected on Zoom until Jeff confirms that the live stream has stopped. And before we say goodnight, everyone, one last goodbye to Clerk Val Hummel, I think is appropriate. Thank you very much, everyone.